Be honest for a moment. Aren't you tired of waking up inside a life that technically works, but quietly hurts? Do you recognize the feeling that everything looks the same, yet nothing fits? Like wearing a coat you once loved that now pinches at the shoulders no matter how you tug it? Do you keep promising yourself you will change when the calendar clears, when the money is better, when other people finally understand, only to watch another month pass while you carry the weight of a version of you that is past its expiration? If that ache is alive in you, this is the right room and this is the right hour. The turning you have been waiting for does not begin with fireworks. It begins with the small disobediences already happening in your body and your days. You are bored by what used to thrill you. Your laugh feels half a second late in rooms that once felt like home. You rehearse talking yourself out of opportunities, then lie awake whispering what if into the dark. The foods, the habits, the stories you used to wear for comfort now taste like stale bread. You keep editing yourself down to be easy for people who never once expanded to make room for you. That friction is not failure, it is the pressure that forms the doorway. The old self does not let you go without tightening its grip first. It pulls you back with nostalgia, with convenience, with the fear of being misunderstood. But the deeper truth is simpler and kinder. You are outgrowing a skin, and the itch you feel is growth looking for air. When you resist, the itch becomes misery. When you cooperate, the itch becomes a map. The signs of readiness are already visible if you look with honest eyes. You have become allergic to your own pretending. You forget to perform and the conversation goes better. You say one clean sentence and the room either brightens or reveals why it cannot hold you. You try to force your old pace and your body answers with headaches and static. Then you slow by one breath and suddenly the day behaves. You keep meeting versions of your future self in flashes. A stranger's sentence lands like a bell. A street calls your name twice. An idea refuses to leave until you put a hand on it. You're not broken for feeling this way. You are accurate. Every identity has an ecosystem and yours has been starving for new weather. The proof lives in the way time has been acting around you. Hours that used to drag now feel crammed with signals. Tasks finish themselves once you begin, as if the world had been waiting for you to stop negotiating with your hesitation. The friendships that survive your honesty deepen in a week more than others did in years. The ones that wither leave more relief than grief. That is the mathematics of an ending doing its job. If you are worried that leaving the old self will cost you too much, consider the bill you are already paying to keep it. The self-censorship, the jaw that clamps, the second guessing at 2 in the morning, the day you lose to shame after you abandon a promise to yourself. The currency of that life is expensive and the return is thin. The shift you are about to make replaces that economy with something sustainable. In the minutes ahead, I will show you how to recognize the point of no return without panic, how to steady your nervous system so courage does not burn out, and how to move in small, precise ways that make the change irreversible. No speeches to the world, no grand resignations for their own sake. You will learn the language of leaving well, which is the art of taking your next shape without setting your life on fire. If this message found you on a day when you were about to quit on yourself or double down on a compromise that hurts, treat this as your sign to pause, not to freeze, to pause with intelligence. You are closer than your doubt will admit. The work is not to invent a new personality. The work is to stop lugging the one you have outgrown. You already know the life that is trying to meet you because you have tasted it in moments when you felt like yourself without effort. All we are doing is turning those moments into your default. Breathe. You have not missed your window. The handle is on your side of the door and your hand already knows how to turn it. You will know the old self is loosening when familiarity stops feeling like safety and starts feeling like shrinkage. When the places that once soothed you now ask you to dim your volume to fit their room. When the story you have been repeating to stay consistent suddenly tastes false in your own mouth. The first sign is subtle dishonesty dying on your tongue. You try to say yes the way you always have, and a clean no rises instead. Not angry, simply accurate. You try to be thrilled by what used to glitter, and your body answers with a sigh that sounds like truth. You cannot unhear that sigh. It is the moment a snake realizes the skin is not home but husk, and from that moment everything else becomes logistics. The second sign is the end of plausible deniability. You used to be able to distract yourself back into comfort with noise and errands and admirable reasons. Now the trick does not take. You put on the coat that once meant belonging, and it pinches at the shoulders. You open the app that used to drown doubt, and it feels like standing under a fluorescent light with a headache. The conversation you once performed in your sleep now leaves you tired after 2 minutes because your laugh arrives half a second late and your eyes cannot lie as well as they used to. This is not failure. It is precision returning. Precision always makes counterfeits harder to tolerate. The third sign is time behaving strangely around what matters. When you touch the future that fits, hours open like a window and the air moves again. When you cling to what is done, minutes congeal and you feel heavy inside the clock. Tasks that align finish themselves once you begin, as if the day had been waiting for you to stop negotiating with your hesitation. Tasks that belong to a past version of you begin to jam and splinter. Emails misfire. Meetings cancel. A small glitch reroutes you to the exact conversation you needed. The mind calls it inconvenience. The body calls it a mercy. Pay attention to which label brings relief. The fourth sign is grief without a villain. Leaving an old self means leaving roles that fed you once, people who held you in the version they know, ambitions that made perfect sense to a person you no longer are. There will be days when you feel tender for no dramatic reason, when you look at a shelf and know half of it is history. Do not mistake that tenderness for a red light. It is a benediction at the border. Thank what brought you this far. Let it end cleanly. You do not have to hate the past to outgrow it. In fact, loving it makes the hinge quieter and keeps you from slamming doors you may need to pass through in a different capacity later. The fifth sign is the point of no return made visible by a sentence you cannot unsay to yourself. It may be as quiet as "I cannot keep paying for this with my nervous system," or as precise as "I want a life where my evenings belong to me." Once the sentence lands, you can try to pretend you did not hear it, but you will feel the cost immediately. Your jaw will clamp, your sleep will thin, your patience will fray at innocent things. The body is not punishing you. It is signaling that the toll for pretending has become too expensive. The moment you honor the sentence with one small action, pressure drops. This is how you know the hinge has turned. Relief arrives before results. Small tells accumulate. Your playlist shifts without a meeting. Your hand hovers over the reply button and chooses silence because the real answer would be an apology you no longer owe. You tidy one drawer and realize it was never about the drawer. You walk a different route and meet a thought that reorders your week. You stop auditioning for rooms that require you to be half a person. You start seeing invitations for what they are, not what your loneliness or pride wanted them to be. Even resistance becomes diagnostic. The loudest objections often guard the door you most need to open. When you touch that doorknob, you will hear a chorus of reasons from your history. Let them speak. Then check the data. Does your breath lengthen when you imagine stepping through? Does your energy return when you take a single step in that direction? Data beats drama every time. You may worry that this recognition will demand a bonfire of everything you have built. It will not. What it asks for is fidelity in small, repeatable acts. A clean boundary spoken once and kept. A project quietly retired. A morning protected from the scroll so your future can find you awake. You do not need all the answers to leave the old self. You need a sequence you trust and evidence you will not ignore. The evidence is here already in the form of relief that shows up when you tell one true sentence and act on it. The sequence is simple and you will learn it in the next section. For now, admit what you cannot unknow. The coat does not fit. The clock argues less when you stop forcing. The sentence has landed and refuses to leave. That refusal is not a threat. It is your life tapping the glass. Turn toward it. You are closer than you think, not to a dramatic reinvention, but to a version of every day that does not require you to perform your way through it. Leaving an old self is not a single decision, but a change in physics inside you. A shift in what your body takes as normal and what your mind stops arguing to maintain. and the threshold only opens reliably when state leads and story follows. State first means you give your nervous system the feeling of safety before you ask it for courage. When your body believes it is safe, options multiply and timing slows enough for accuracy to enter. When your body believes it is under threat, old roles rush in with their scripts because survival favors the familiar. You cannot shame the body out of that reflex. You can teach it a different baseline. The simplest markers tell you where you are standing on any given minute. In a protective state, the breath rises and shortens. The jaw patrols. The shoulders creep. Attention narrows to what could go wrong. In a regulated state, the breath deepens and lengthens, the face softens, the spine stacks without force, attention widens just enough to see choices. The crossover between those states is the hinge you are learning to move on purpose. One slow exhale is a vote. One honest posture is a vote. One hand on the belly until your breath drops from the chest is a vote. The hinge does not respond to speeches. It responds to sensation that says, we are not in a fire, we can choose. Only then is it time to talk to story. Identity is a bundle of stories you practiced until they looked like truth. Many were useful for years. Some protected you, some won you belonging. The trouble begins when a story that once kept you safe becomes a contract that keeps you small. There are 3 common contracts at the doorway out of an old self, and you will likely recognize their voices. The first says, I must be consistent with who I have been, or I will be untrustworthy. It sounds noble until you realize it asks you to betray the part of you that grew. Real trustworthiness is fidelity to what is truer today, not loyalty to yesterday's costume. The second says, my value comes from carrying what others cannot or will not, so I must keep proving I can hold twice my share. This contract builds a pedestal that doubles as a cage. When you leave it, you do not become selfish. You become accurate about the difference between generosity and depletion. The third says, if I am misunderstood, then I have failed, so I must keep explaining myself until every witness agrees. This contract exhausts your life for the illusion of control over other people's seeing. Departure from it returns your hours and makes your yes and no legible without the performance. Notice how none of these stories collapse under argument when your body is braced. They only loosen when the breath slows, the spine finds its natural stack, the gaze widens, and the inner temperature drops a degree. Then a different sentence can land. I am trustworthy because I honor the truest data available now. I am generous when I give from a full system and say no when the cost is my clarity. I am willing to be misread by some so I can be fully read by myself. Keep the mechanics simple. State leads story, then story instructs action. Try to do it in the opposite order, and you will rehearse courage while the body quietly resists and drags the moment back to what it knows. The mind is brilliant but literal. It repeats whatever the body practices. If the body practices bracing, the mind writes reasons to brace. If the body practices lengthened exhalations, unhurried gaze, and a spine that is tall without effort, the mind writes reasons to move with care. This is why the old self unravels fastest when you stop feeding it with your posture and your breath. It cannot survive in a room where those two keep telling the truth. There is also a practical identity you will inhabit during the crossing. The bridge self. The bridge self is not the final version you dream about, and it is not the past version you are leaving. It is the steward who gets you across the river without sinking the boat. The bridge self chooses sufficiency over spectacle, exchanges perfect timing for honest timing, and measures progress by relief that arrives before results. Wear that identity for a while. It will feel modest and powerful in the same hour. As you cross, expect old narratives to try one last negotiation. They will offer you a discount if you stay, a softer deadline, a promise that things will improve if you contort once more. Do not answer with contempt. Answer with data. Your body has the ledger. It remembers the cost of those bargains, and it recognizes the price is too high. When you breathe long enough to feel that ledger, the math writes its own conclusion. You are not abandoning a self so much as returning accuracy to the controls. From this accuracy, small persistent actions become possible without the adrenaline that wrecks them, and the threshold that looked like a cliff becomes a step. In the next section, you will turn these mechanics into an ordinary sequence you can repeat morning and night, a rhythm that steadies the boat, keeps the bridge self in charge, and carries you across without setting your life on fire. Make the crossing practical by giving each day a simple spine. Begin before the world grabs you and set the tone in the first quiet minutes. Sit where your feet touch the floor and let one long exhale tell your system there is no emergency. Then, let your eyes soften and place attention in the space behind your forehead. Feel how this settles the inner weather. Speak one present tense sentence that fits the day you are choosing. Say, I move with clean timing, or I keep one promise to myself, or another phrase that rings true. Then choose a tiny promise you can keep before noon, something so small it cannot scare your courage. Answer one message you have delayed, or drink water before coffee, or step outside for 5 breaths of air. Keep it ordinary and keep it kept. The goal is to start the engine without revving it to red, because the body trusts momentum more than declarations. And the bridge self you are wearing thrives on proof that arrives in minutes, not months. As the day unfolds, treat every hinge moment like a chance to return to accuracy. A hinge moment is any point where a yes or no will shape your energy for hours. Pause for a single breath and let the exhale be longer than the inhale. Feel your spine stack and widen your gaze by a few calm degrees. Ask one question that cuts through performance. What choice brings relief in an hour rather than applause in a minute? The answer will not always be pleasant, but it will be clear. Then act in a way your future self can thank without footnotes. When you feel yourself reaching for old armor, remember that clarity does not need volume. It needs contact. So lower your shoulders and speak one honest sentence sooner than you used to, and allow silence to carry the rest. You do not need to explain your new timing to be legitimate. Your calendar will explain it for you as it changes shape. Build guardrails that keep you from being pulled back by noise. Make it easy to do the right thing and hard to do the old thing. Put the tool you actually need on the desk and move the glitter to another room. Close the tab that steals afternoons and open the document that makes a real dent. Set alarms not as pressure, but as a bell to return to your breath every few hours. When the bell sounds, touch the inner point behind the brow and let 3 slow exhales reset the channel. This is how you practice leaving the old self without drama while emails and errands continue. The bridge self-guides, the old scripts lose leverage because the system is learning a new normal. In conversations, listen from the seat behind the face and watch how words carry weight or air before their content lands. If the talk begins to pull you back into the role you have outgrown, adjust with a smaller truth instead of a larger performance. I cannot take that on, or I need time before I answer, or I am not the right person for this. Speak it once and let silence do its job. People will reveal whether they relate to you or to the role. Both outcomes are information you can use to set the next step. Leave rooms that only love your compromise and stay in rooms that love your accuracy. Either way, you keep your energy with you, which is the currency that funds the new life. Give the evening a closing posture that protects the gains of the day. Dim the lights a shade earlier and place attention at the brow again for 7 easy breaths. Write one line about what felt true today and one line about what is ready to be released. Keep each line short so the habit can survive busy nights. If a name belongs on the release line, let it be ink and not a speech. If a pattern belongs there, let tomorrow's promise address it with one tiny adjustment. You are training your system to end days with coherence rather than rumination, which is how the next morning begins above the waterline instead of under it. When setbacks appear, and they will, use them as a measurement device rather than a verdict. If you stumble into an old reaction, repair as a practitioner, not as a penitent. Breathe, own one sentence of truth. Choose the next micro move that restores alignment. The point is not perfection. The point is velocity in the direction of the life that fits. Relief will keep arriving before results when you are on track. And that relief is the trustworthy signal that you are leaving the old self without setting fires you will later have to put out. To make the change irreversible, include one tiny public action each day that the old self would have avoided. Publish a paragraph, send the application, book a conversation, recycle the object that represents a duty you no longer carry. Visible acts recalibrate identity faster than private vows because your world begins to reflect the person you are becoming, and then mirrors do part of the work for you. Finally, hold the simplest vow through all of this. When the day blurs, I return to breath. When choices harden, I return to the brow. When stories shout, I return to silence. The sequence never needs to get louder than that. And if you keep it for a week, you will feel how the bridge holds and how the water beneath you starts to move with rather than against, which is the body's way of saying the crossing is no longer theory, it is underway. You did not come here to be convinced. You came here to be reminded of what you already know and to be given a way to hold it long enough for your life to change shape. The old self taught you loyalty and stamina, and those lessons were not wasted. They were simply never meant to be a prison. You have learned where the hinge is now, and you have felt how state leads story, and how story instructs action, and how action becomes a day that does not argue with you. There will still be mornings when the past knocks with the sweetness of a familiar song, and it will be tempting to answer by shrinking so no one is disturbed. Let sweetness be honored and keep the door closed. Growth is not a betrayal of who you were. It is a faithful translation of what you are becoming. If doubt returns with its spreadsheets of risk, let your body submit different accounting. Show it how your breath lengthens when you tell one clean truth. Show it the relief that lands before results when you take the smallest step that matches the sentence you can no longer unsay to yourself. Relief is data. Coherence is data. Energy that returns to you after a choice is the most honest metric you possess. Keep using that metric until the mind learns to trust what the body already knows. Leaving well does not require drama. It requires rhythm. You have one now. A morning that belongs to you before the world asks for anything. A breath and a brow and a sentence that sets your aim. A tiny promise kept before noon that reminds the nervous system it can rely on you. A pause before hinges where you choose relief in an hour over applause in a minute. An evening that ends with coherence so tomorrow can begin above the waterline. String days like this together and the bridge self completes its job without fanfare. You will look back and recognize the exact week when your calendar started reflecting your priorities without negotiations. The exact conversation where your voice arrived without armor. The exact night sleep returned because you stopped auditioning for rooms that only loved your compromise. Do not wait to feel ready. Readiness is not a mood. It is a sequence you can run even when your hands shake. Begin where you stand. Put one line in your day that the old self would avoid and let the new one inherit its place. Choose the rooms that love your accuracy. Let endings end without testimony. Let beginnings begin without apology. Keep the vows small and kept. When the day blurs, return to breath. When choices harden, return to the brow. When stories shout, return to silence. Walk as if the floor has learned your name, because it has. The life you are meeting has been looking for you all along, and it recognizes your step. You can leave the old self now. You can go without setting fires. You can cross and arrive and stay.